Nick speaking. Welcome to this video. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the first elite choice in this series, and that's going to be the Striking Scorpions. So first up, mine aren't painted. I'll give you a little back history of what happened to me. So yeah, coming from playing Necrons and Space Wolves, going through the Eldar Codex was a bit of a mission really for me. I mean, I started off, I found a Farseer and some Guardians in a charity shop, really cheap, picked them up, got the Codex. I didn't really know much about Eldar. I certainly didn't know there was such a huge learning curve. So I looked through the book, and after I got my Guardians and Farseer built up, I started off playing 400 points, so I had about 200 points to spend, and it was like, well, what should I take? And the Striking Scorpions stand out amongst pretty much all the other units, down to the fact they have a 3+ save. And like I said, coming from Necrons, I mean, all warriors at the time were 3+ save, and Space Wolves, obviously, these looked like the obvious choice. Hey, 3+ save, you know, brilliant. So yeah, I went for the Striking Scorpions, and I was all set. I played a few games with these. I was enjoying using them, and I was all set to paint them. And then, as I collected more and more Eldar and I got more experience with them, I started to go in different directions, going for Mekdar and stuff, some Han type lists, and the Scorpions, they got left by the wayside a bit. And as I got used to having a 4+ save or a 5+ save, the 3+ save wasn't as important as it initially was. So that's why they're not painted really, because I've just changed direction with them. But yeah, we're going to have a look at them now in 6th edition and see what we can do with them. Okay, so the Scorpions they're an assault unit. They're not an uber assault unit, but they're pretty decent in assault. They have their initiative 5, which is a very good starting place, and if you go for the Exarch, he's initiative 6. So they're pretty high initiative. They have that 3+ save, as I said, and they have the Scorpion's Chain Sword, which is a one-handed weapon, so they're going to get +1 to their attack, plus the sword gives you +1 to strength, so it's going to be strength 4. They've got 1 attack base, 1 for 2 weapons, and then 1 for charging, plus with the Mandy blasters they get an additional 1 for charging. So they've got a reasonable amount of attacks on the charge, which is very useful. You can, with the Exarch, take the Stalker mode, which basically is a move through cover, which I would say is worthwhile, because most of the time you are going to be on foot with these guys, so I would say yes to Stalker. Shadow Strike, I used to use it all the time, where you could infiltrate, because then you could assault from the flank, but you can't really do that so much now. I mean, if you want to infiltrate these, then fair enough, take it. Otherwise, I would probably say no. So how to arm the Exarch? Well, in 5th edition, I always went with the Scorpion's Claw. He's strength 3 base, so it's a strength 6 power fist basically. And I think it was worthwhile having that power weapon within the unit. Very useful, because although they have a lot of attacks, that, you know, there's no power weapons, so that worked out really well. And of course these initiative 5, they all went first, and then the Claw came in just to mop up anything left. Things are slightly different now because you have challenges. So if he gets caught in a challenge, you know, he's going to be going last if you're up against a sergeant with a power sword, and any power weapon's going to take him out, because he's only toughness 3 and no invulnerable save. So you might have an issue with that. You could arguably then go for the Chain Sabers, which will give you that, you know, maintain his initiative 6, so you'll be going first in the challenge. But even with all the attacks and the re-rolls, you know, they're not power weapons, and the chances are your sergeant, or if you're up against a Terminator or something, you know, he's going to get all his saves. So you could choose either one, but I'm going to stick with this one, the Power Claw, purely because I think it's nice to have that threat of power weapon. In terms of using them, you could put them in a Wave Serpent, but they've always had issues with Wave Serpents anyway. I mean, I know you can't assault from a Wave Serpent now, so it does make that sort of use pretty useless. But previously, because they don't have fleet, unlike the Howling Banshees, where you could move your wave serpent up, and then the next turn you could get out the back of the serpent, you could get out, you could fleet and assault. You know, you couldn't do that with these. And of course, if you, in the old book, if you use pivots, you get your guys out, you can no longer assault. So yeah, that was a bit of a problem. But you know, that's history, and yes, they can't assault from the wave serpent, so it's probably a waste of time. So again, we're back to having foot. You're probably noticing a bit of a trend here that most of these units are pretty good on foot, and of course we know that's why, because 4th edition is a 4th edition codex, and in 4th edition any unit could be scoring. It was very much a foot based game. It wasn't until 5th came out that it went very, very heavy on tanks. So we're sort of coming back into our element in some ways, but you have to remember these are still strength 3 and toughness 3, so you need to remember that as well. Okay, so that's it. Unit size, and it's pretty obvious here, you're going to need at least, again, just like on the Dire Avengers, you want 7, at least 7, ideally 9 or 10. Exart, I would say, is mandatory really on these guys. You're going to need an Exart on them. And yeah, 3+ save sounds fantastic, but remember, it's quite easy to throw those 1s and 2s, but it is obviously a lot better than that 4+ save. The only thing you have to be careful with, obviously, with 6th edition is there's a lot more plasma guns around there, so you'll still need to try and keep these in cover, because AP3 with plasma, you know, this unit can easily be taken out with a few plasma shots. So yeah, you're going to need cover as well as relying on their 3+ save. Okay, so that's it for me on this one, and next we're going to have a look at fire dragons.